Do you ever realize that you over-explained yourself after an interaction? Do you know it's a habit that you have, but you can't seem to stop? Over-explaining can happen to codependents because we've been through trauma where we were rewarded for over-explaining. It kept us safe, that's how we survived. Our abuser would reward us for it. If we didn't over-explain, we would be punished. Let's get into all of the details and how to overcome this in this video. So the narcissist or abuser, toxic person, whatever you want to call them, trained us to do it, and we learned that over-explaining was the safest way to protect ourselves from the psychological abuse we were going through. They did this because after we over-explained, we were in their control. We gave them the personal information they wanted that they could then use against us. We told them all of our truths so they could come at us and cause the worst kinds of psychological pain to the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. It's a key part of the abuse that a narcissistic or toxic person does to us. They question us over and over again, putting us in a very uncomfortable and terrible position until we over-explain. Narcissists can sense a codependent's insecurity and a desire to be understood. They act confused or feign ignorance, which then prompts the codependent in their desire to be understood to then explain themselves excessively. And in this time is when the narcissist listens carefully to gather information about the codependent's triggers and vulnerabilities to use against them in the future. Narcissists will also gaslight the codependent, asking them questions to make them doubt their memory, doubt their thoughts, or doubt their perception of events. And they'll do intermittent validation, making the codependent feel invalidated and then quickly validating them, only to invalidate them again, which keeps the codependent hooked, always waiting for the next bit of approval. They'll also shift goalposts, constantly changing what is right or acceptable for the codependent to say. And as they are taking this chip in the codependent's shoulder of feeling like they need to prove themselves, they get the codependent completely into their power in this way. And this keeps the codependent desperately hoping to satisfy the narcissist's demands. But the demands keep shifting, so the codependent never gets anywhere. The narcissist will also use pity plays, victimhood, and rage to make the codependent feel responsible for their emotional state, even though they're in control of the narcissist, who is throwing them their emotional state all over the place with these manipulation tactics. You'll feel scared, horribly confused, and try to explain yourself more, believing it will calm them down and keep you safe and out of their abuse, but it won't. The more you over-explain, the more they control the narrative. Once they're satisfied, the narcissist ends the interaction, and the codependent feels that over-explaining gave them a temporary reward and kept them safe. This becomes a deep ingrained habit in the mind and the body of the codependent, believing that over-explaining will keep them from further conflict and abuse, that it's the best thing they know what to do in order to survive the abuse that they're stuck in. But here's the truth. Over-explaining doesn't keep you safe, and I know you know that logically. It keeps you in their control. Your worth is not defined by how much you explain yourself or how much of yourself you give away to avoid conflict. You deserve relationships where you're respected, where your boundaries are honored, without needing to justify or explain every detail or to be forced down a rabbit hole of trying to prove yourself. It's time to break free from this pattern. You don't owe anyone your explanations. And it's going to take time. the neuroscience shows that in order to change our habits like this, it takes time to rewire the brain. So we have to be patient with ourselves and just persistent with our efforts. Remember that your feelings are valid, your boundaries are valid. You can trust your voice without having to over-explain it. And when you feel that something is super wrong, you're probably right. It's time to reclaim your power.